Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Think Future. My name is Chris Calabugas, and once again, we're coming at you live from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking innovation, startups, the future, not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you're watching on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can be notified when a new show comes online. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and please drop a note on Apple Podcasts. I'd greatly appreciate it. So, I read the other day that the FDA, the Federal Department of Agriculture, I think that's what they're called, the FDA has approved the sale of lab-grown meat. So y'all know we talk what lab-grown meat is. We've talked about meat alternatives in the past. And I had a really great interview with someone from the Good Food Institute, GFI, who we were talking about the alternative ways of feeding people. Because there's still, despite the fact that we've had so much technological advancement in this space, there's still people starving out there. There's still people not getting the right nutrients. There's obesity. There's hunger. We still have issues with food. And people are still worried about the food supply and us losing supply chain, food, all of that stuff. So some enterprising individuals have gone out there and figured out how to clone and create meat in a lab. And we talked about this years ago. I think Google had a company that was doing it. There was a couple of other companies that were doing it. The lab grew a hamburger. It was like, I remember reading the article about it. They said it was a $33,000 hamburger. And then when they bit into it, they realized it wasn't going to be any good because they forgot to grow the fat. And everyone knows that the best kind of hamburger has got a lot of fat in it, right? I mean, that's the whole point of the keto diet. So it's been years now. It's been 5, 6, 10 years, however long it's been since they first grew that first hamburger out of the lab. No animals were killed in the creation of this meat. They just grabbed a couple of their cells and they put them in a lab and they put technology around it and they were able to grow meat in a lab. And companies have recently been able to grow beef. They've been able to grow chicken. They've been able to grow different kinds of meat in a lab. And the FDA has just recently approved, that's what I said at the beginning, the sale of lab-grown meat. Now, let me ask you something. I don't know about you, but I would love to try this lab-grown meat because, I'm a risk taker. I'm a futurist. I love seeing things from the future. I love thinking about how technology could improve our lives. I'd love to try this lab-grown meat, and I wouldn't be surprised if lab-grown meat tastes exactly the same as regular meat. I mean, it might not have the same variations as meat. Lab-grown meat probably tastes the same. If you have a lab-grown burger one day, if you have that lab-grown burger the next day, it'll probably taste exactly the same, unlike with regular meat where there's variations. You buy some burger meat that's 70-30. It might be 71-29 one day, and the opposite. It might, depending on what the cow was eating that day, it might taste different. So what I'm saying is that lab-grown meat will taste exactly the same every time you have it. But the thing is that no animals were killed in the process of creating this meat. So I ask you, if you were a vegetarian, would you eat lab-grown meat? Well, I guess it depends on the kind of vegetarian you are. If you have an issue with killing animals to eat, then you shouldn't have a problem with lab-grown meat, right? Is it an issue with GMO? Well, of course it's not genetically modified. It's lab-grown. It's a completely different process. So would you have the same qualms about eating something like that compared to GMO? You might think, well, it's unnaturally produced. Sure, it is unnaturally produced. Well, unless you think of human beings as part of nature, in which case it is naturally produced. It's naturally produced by human beings who've invented a process to grow meat in a lab. So I think some people would never want to do this. It's kind of like that guy who used to never showered for 12 years, right? You say somebody doesn't shower for 12 years, doesn't he stink? Well, he sprays some bacteria killing stuff on himself every day and kills the bacteria. He doesn't have to use too much water. In fact, perfect for a drought, right? But when you first hear that story, you think to yourself, God, I would never want to be near that guy. He must really stink. I hear he doesn't smell too bad. So if you think about it, these kind of solutions, they initially have that ick factor, right? You think to yourself, oh, I would never want to use bacteria spray. I want to shower. So now he's like, I never want to kill an animal to eat it, but here's some meat from an animal that hasn't been killed. Would you eat it? I know I would, but a lot of people go, ick. I wouldn't eat anything grown in a lab. Well, if you think about it, what is a plant? What is when they do hybrid plants? When they take and create new plants by transplanting plants and what's the term that they use when they put one branch on another? I forget. But they can create whole new plants, not genetically modified. They just sort of slap plants together and they grow together, and they can create whole new plants. They can create wheat that's more hardy. You can create wheat that's more healthy. They can create... So human beings have used technology and techniques to make food healthier, to make food hardier, and now they've turned their sights to creating meat. If you were to eat lab-grown meat, if you were to be presented with lab-grown meat, would you not want to try it? Think about it. If you have issues with climate change, if you believe climate change is being caused by the amount of meat that people are eating, then wouldn't you be happy with the creation of lab-grown meat? Because then we wouldn't need as many cows farting methane into the atmosphere. We would be able to reduce the amount of methane in the atmosphere by creating lab-grown meat. Now, sure, I'm sure that there's processes that create some kind of waste product in the lab-grown meat, but you never know. Maybe if it's clean. Maybe the process is so clean that if you create lab-grown meat, you can create tons of lab-grown meat. You can create as much lab-grown meat as you want to be able to, feed the protein needs of the entire planet. If you could do that, would you still want to eat lab-grown meat? I know I would. So if you ask me, this can only be a good thing. And if anything, it should be an augmentation to what we already have. Because it's not going to become overnight. It's kind of like automated trucks. Everyone's going to go, oh my God, automated trucks are going to come in and they're going to eliminate truckers overnight. And I'm like, no, the world doesn't work that way. Nothing is ever eliminated overnight. Everything is eliminated very slowly. Everything changes much slower than I'd like it to change. Trust me. I would love to see change happening at more of a breakneck pace, but human beings don't like that. We fear change. We don't like it when things change too much or too often or in ways that we don't like, even though we should be embracing change because that is the way of the world. So when these technologies are created, they come in extremely slowly. And as they come in super, super slowly, there's still going to be a lot of people who are going to want to eat regular meat. So there's still going to be a lot of cows out there. But there's going to be a contingent of people who are going to be, you know what? This lab-grown meat is not bad. And as time goes by, they're going to continue to improve lab-grown meat until in some ways, can you imagine if you were a chef, if you were a Michelin-starred chef, wouldn't you love to be able to create designer meat? Wouldn't you love to be able to take all different kinds of cells from different kinds of animals and create, say, the ultimate meat? This French laundry meat, special kind of meat that only you have created, is only available in your restaurant, and you can charge $1,000 a pound to try? Wouldn't you, as a culinary expert, be excited about the prospect of lab-grown meat? I mean, it's like taking Scotch whiskeys and mixing them, or wine and mixing them and creating new things. I mean, wouldn't you be excited about the possibilities of lab-grown meat and to be able to create new kinds of meat that are specific to you, branded with your name? The possibilities are amazing. So when I first hear about lab-grown meat, I think, this is great. But those of you out there are thinking to yourself, and that's the question, would you eat lab-grown meat? Would you try lab-grown meat? What do you think of lab-grown meat? Do you think lab-grown meat is a good idea? Or we should still have as many cows as we need? Or should we stop eating meat? Period. Is eating meat, period, and actually creating lab-grown meat a bad thing for the human race? If you ask me, I'm an omnivore. Human beings are omnivores. We should be able to eat everything. Meat has certain qualities that make it good for us. If we are pure vegetarians, pure vegans, we still need to supplement our diets with certain vitamins that are in meat. So once again, I ask you, would you eat lab-grown meat? It's out there today. Would you have it for breakfast or for dinner tomorrow? That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.